What's going on, guys, and welcome. This is episode number 42 of RizzoCast, and we are joined today by none other than Sacramento State pitching coach and former minor league catcher Tyler LaTorre. Tyler, what's going on?
Nothing much. Getting ready for a season. We have opening day here coming up pretty quick, and we missed a lot of baseball last year, so our guys are eager to get back on the field, and I'm excited to be on the podcast with you today.
Yeah, so your first year was weird. So after 16 games, that the NCAA said this pandemic is getting too out of hand. They shut down sports around the country. What was that experience like? How did you guys kind of first get the call that you guys were going to be shut down?
Yeah. It was so early in the year that we just kind of hit our stride. Pitchers were pitching well, and hitters were coming around. Usually at the beginning of all college seasons, those offensive players are kind of getting their groove back of facing live hitters that aren't not your inner squads or against your own pitchers. So we had just gotten back from playing UC Irvine. We played USF on a Tuesday, and then all of a sudden we were, shut down on Thursday before we even got a chance to go play University of Nevada, Reno. So it was really early, and it kind of hit us kind of hard just because we had some seniors that, they didn't know that their last at bats were that Tuesday at USF. One of our catching seniors who now has a really good job out in Austin, Texas. If he would have known that was his last ever at bat in baseball, he probably wouldn't have struck out looking. He would have gone down at least swinging. So it was tough, but our guys hopefully are going to show some resiliency and some, the culture that we've built here of trying to get better each and every day. Some of our guys went out and played summer ball, and luckily for us, we had a full fall too. So that was good as well.
Yeah, so here you are now. You guys, as you mentioned, are back working out, getting ready for the season that starts later this month. So what are some of the early impressions that you have of some of your pitchers?
Yeah, so we've got some really good returners coming back. Last year, we lost our Friday night guy. Parker Brahms got picked up by the Pirates. Super happy for him. Goes down as one of the most prestigious pitchers in Sac State history. So it was exciting to work with him for as long as I could. But we've got, Scott Randall's back, who was our Saturday guy that will now move into the Friday night role. And then Travis Adams, who's a third year, I guess, sophomore, but he's in his third year. He'll move into, that second spot. And we've got closer Stone Turby back. So that's, three important pieces back, but that doesn't, even begin to count the people we have available. We've got, Travis Martesia, who's a mainstay in our bullpen, who's pitched in regionals, and Brady Rodriguez, who's pitched in regionals as a left-handed pitcher. Jack Zalaski was off to a really good start last year out of our bullpen. And we've got some really good newcomers. Freshman Eli Saul is going to be a really good piece for us. And we picked up a transfer from Ryland Tinsley from Cal State Stanislaus. Their season got canceled due to COVID, so the Division II conference, the CCAA, canceled their season in the fall for this season. So he was able to be granted a waiver to be eligible for us too. So we have a lot of guys that have experience. We also have some freshmen that missed their senior year, so they haven't played in a real game in a really long time as well. So I'm really excited for them to come out and show all the hard work that they've put in over this time and just go and compete.
So were you involved in some of these guys? Because I know there was a big kind of a layoff between when you guys got shut down in 2020 and now here you are, started in the fall or whenever you guys started. Were you involved in some of the throwing programs that these guys, took part in during their time off from the quarantine process?
Yeah, I try to be involved with them as much as possible. Obviously, it was tough with them not being able to come out to the field. During the summertime, it's kind of, if guys aren't playing summer ball, they can come out and lift and be out at the field. And I'm not allowed to instruct them, but there's still some face-to-face interaction. So there was a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages, a lot of, we have a big pitchers group text that we send out videos, we send out inspirational quotes, just trying to stay connected with them as much as possible. And I think that that's done really well, especially with the older group we've got coming back, to mix in those freshmen that came in as well, to be able to stay connected with them. But yeah, I was fully committed with each one of our pitchers on the individual throwing program, whether those guys were throwing every day in the Northwoods League or Summer League, or if they were just training and getting themselves in the weight room. I was making sure that they were ready once we start fall. And then, once you get done with fall, you have a little bit of a layoff before you start building back up in January to get ready for February. So those conversations are always ongoing. And sometimes you have, setbacks, or guys are ahead of schedule. So you got to be able to be flexible as much as possible in building those relationships with each player, and being able to communicate how they're feeling, and where I see them tomorrow, where I see them a week from now, and where I see them a month from now in their development process.
So what do you tell the guys in terms of philosophy on the mound, in terms of a game plan on the mound? Or maybe a better question would be, is there a style that you guys like to do stuff with? I know, for example, the Pirates have big, I had Tyler Glasnow on, not to name drop or anything, but he mentioned that the Pirates were big on, sinker ball pitchers down and in. And the Astros, meanwhile, are a team, the Astros and the Rays are teams that, kind of value maybe off-speed pitches a little bit more, limit the fastball usage. So what is kind of Sac State's philosophy on the mound?
I think it's every pitch matters. I think early in my coaching career, I got caught up in, let's get a first pitch strike, and let's win the 1-1 count, and 2 strikes within the first 3 pitches, and those are great stats to have, and I think it's good to have those as a coach. But the players, I really want them to know that every single pitch matters. No pitch is bigger than another pitch, and if you can simplify that down and just execute that pitch that's happening right now, I think it helps. I think it helps, especially in the development side. We really try to commit to the strike zone. I think everybody's trying to do that, and I think sometimes when you have 3, 4, sometimes even 5 pitches, I think that takes away from being really good with maybe 1 or 2. I think that having a fastball, I think getting back to your question, your statement about, the Pirates throwing sinker balls down and in, I think that, having a fastball in and having a fastball away, that might be 2 separate pitches. So now all of a sudden you add in, fastball up, you add in, slider, and you add up changeup. Now you've got like 4 or 5 different pitches, and you're trying to make them all good. When, if we can try to make, 2 fastballs, glove side and arm side, and maybe even start with just down the middle and letting it work. And then being able to have an off-speed pitch that gets people off your fastball. And having that be a plus pitch, not just, my changeup's okay, my slider's okay, and my fastball's really good. We want our guys to have elite fastball command, and then have a plus pitch as an off-speed pitch, and then we can add in a third and a fourth pitch if you're a starter and you're later on in your career. I think that the development side of our pitching staff is, I'm not going to talk to a freshman the same way I'm going to talk to one of our juniors or seniors, and that's just talking about more on the development side of what you're trying to achieve in a baseball game, and just setting up our pitchers to have success. When you try to overload them, sometimes they try to worry about too many things. It could take a lot longer for them to develop, instead of hey, these are the few things that we're going to focus on, and we're going to be really good at that, and then start adding on as you show that you can execute 70% of the time, and now we'll add in maybe a third pitch, or maybe we'll add in a slide step, or some things that we'll add on later on to our older guys.
So I know they used to, and I don't know if I'm sure they still do at a lot of levels. They used to teach, pitch down, pound the bottom of the strike zone, and that would result in a ground ball. And now launch angle, the barrel is kind of headed right into that general direction. So pitchers are, starting to work up with their fastballs. For me, I feel like that would make, that would have more of a chance of being a mistake, because mistakes up in the strike zone, usually they're not good. So what's your philosophy on maybe working up and down in the strike zone?
I think that's very individually based.
Yeah.
With the technology that's out there, and we're extremely blessed at Sacramento State to have a head coach that wants our guys to, develop as best we can. We have Rissotto in the bullpen, and now we have TrackMan on the field. The pitchers that know about their, spin rates and vertical rise and horizontal movement on two seamers and sinkers and sliders and what your ball is doing. I think that's where you base a game plan off of that. In pro ball, pitchers, sometimes pitch to the hitter's weakness. I think in college, if you really, really pitch to the pitcher's strengths and maybe not worry about the hitter's strength or weakness, I think that the pitchers are better off at the collegiate level. Sometimes you get to the pro side and you have a meeting about the other team's lineup and you say, this guy really doesn't like sliders. We're going to throw this guy sliders. And you got a guy in the mound that doesn't really have a very good slider. And now all of a sudden you're asking him to, throw his worst pitch to somebody that, obviously is not going to hit a breaking ball very well, but maybe that breaking ball plays well to his swing. So we really play to our guys' strengths. And we're continually working on guys' weaknesses and trying to achieve and make weaknesses, not weaknesses, or even, turn into success or positives or strengths. But for the most part, we're going to attack hitters with our strength and make guys uncomfortable. And, if we, somehow, you're going to lose some games, but if we can lose going off of our strength rather than losing the game off of maybe our third or fourth pitch, we'll be all right with that. If our guys go out there and execute, you can't fault them. And if the preparation is there and the intent behind it is there, then we're going to have more success than failures in the collegiate game.
Mm-hmm. So you came up through pro ball when relievers were kind of known as failed starters. So like if there's a number 5 starter struggling, he sucks, he's going to go to the bullpen and we'll use him down 5 or something like that, or up 5. How much has that changed? How much has that thinking changed? I mean, we saw the super bullpens, they're all over the place. I mean, every guy throws 95.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like at the college level, but how much has that, narrative of the failed starter changed in bullpens?
I think definitely you're looking at more specialization in pro ball, preparing guys for what they would do in the big leagues. I think that in the big leagues with the amount of information that's known, you can kind of group certain players into certain positions that's going to best suit the team on trying to win a World Series. I think a lot of teams are on that development side, especially in the minor leagues, on preparing them for what they're going to help the big league team. Whereas at the collegiate level, you have a 4-year span, maybe even a 3-year span. If a guy gets drafted as junior year, you're trying to maximize and develop their strength as best you can to help the team win a championship. But it comes in different ways. You can't just, we have a lot less players than, the minor league system. You can't just, release a guy and pick someone up really quick. There's a more of a human culture, more of a, we're trying to build, we're building people at the collegiate level, and maybe the athlete comes second. And I think, at the pro side, you've got all these athletes that are all striving to, make the big leagues. And they're going to do whatever it takes, whether it's dropping down or throwing. Maybe they come out and they throw 80% sliders because they know that that's going to be the pitch that's going to get them to the big leagues, and maybe not worry about maybe a changeup or working on a 2-seam or working on something else. So they're gonna maximize and get everything out of what their data is telling them is going to get them to the big leagues. Whereas I'm dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds that might grow 6 inches over the course of that 4 years, or they might gain 25 pounds of lifting because they've never lifted like they have here before. We might be able to teach them a new pitch that's more conducive to their arm action. And instead of throwing a curveball, maybe we can change to a slider. But there's also being a good teammate and knowing how to hold runners. And knowing signs, because stealing signs is really prevalent in college baseball. So you got to be able to be aware of that stuff, and picking pitches and tipping pitches, and you got to be aware of that stuff. You got to be able to know where you're going on a bunt play. So there's a lot more to worry about at the collegiate level rather than just going out there and trying to strike everybody out in the big leagues.
Yeah, for sure. So as a former catcher, is it harder to become a pitching coach than some of the former pitchers? I don't know how much you've gotten that question. Because I know you were primarily a catcher. Like, is it, I feel like it could be maybe a little bit different on the mechanical side of things. I know you had the mindset, you have a background in calling pitches. Is it different since you weren't a pitcher?
I think there's a little bit of a difference, but I worked to make sure that I knew how to talk to my pitchers. I went up to Driveline and spent a week up at Driveline. I've gone and I listened to podcasts and listened to Zoom calls and try to get tips and that's over the course of my my 6-year coaching career. I don't think I've ever stopped trying to learn. But the pitcher-catcher relationship is probably the most important relationship on the field. That's why so many managers in the big leagues are ex-catchers. You have to be able to talk to each pitcher individually. You have to know which pitcher you can go out there and kind of rile up and get on a little bit. There's other pitchers that you might have to go out there and pat them on the back and tell them everything's going to be okay. And so that pitcher catcher relationship is not just between the pitcher and catcher, it's between people and people. So if you have a catching background, you know how to deal with people. And so getting into, being a pitching coach, the communication has got to be number one. There's a reason why pitchers are here. They've obviously had a track record of something that was successful in the past. We're going to emphasize that, but also enhance that with some of the things that we're using on a daily basis, whether it's the on-base use screening, it's the weight room, it's conditioning, it's mental training, and being able to talk to a sports psychologist, and then it's the baseball side. Some guys you may have not have ever thrown long toss, and I could remember every single day throwing foul pole to foul pole with Madison Bumgarner in between his starts. And why would I tell someone that it's not going to be good for them to throw long toss when I played long toss with so many, professional pitchers? And on the flip side of that, how am I going to tell a guy that's been doing, maybe some driveline stuff, building up his arm strength, and then take that away from him and say, no, what's made you, I'm going to take it away and you can't do that anymore. So that communication go back and forth. There's might be some, some things we take in and some things we put in. And I think that goes back to that pitcher-catcher relationship and being able to talk to each individual on our pitching staff, maybe in the same way, but in a different manner, to get them to realize where they are today is not where they're going to be tomorrow, and not where they're going to be a year from now, because of the work they're putting in each and every day.
So I mentioned primarily a catcher, but you did pitch. I did my due diligence. You did pitch a little bit over 7 innings at the minor league level. Were those blowout games? How did that come about with you pitching?
Yeah. So, minor league, you only have 25 guys on the roster and you're playing 142 games in 150 days. And, there's just some games where, especially in the PCL and AAA, the PCL, you're playing in, Colorado Springs, where a pop-up to the infield ends up being a 3-run homer. There was just some times where you didn't want to use your bullpen, and you just tried to live to see the next day and give guys some rests. I think the first time I ever pitched in pro ball, we actually, we were in AA. One of our starters at the deadline, Tim Alderson, got traded to the Pirates, and he was supposed to start that day. So he couldn't start that day at the deadline. So now all of a sudden we've got a bullpen day. The next day, Bumgarner got thrown out of the game because he threw at somebody and got mad. So now all of a sudden we had another bullpen day. I think the pitcher that came in after him, the first pitch he threw got a line drive off of his head. So he was concussed and got knocked out of the game. So now all of a sudden you're bringing up someone from Augusta, or maybe throwing someone on short day rest, and then your bullpen's done. So I think we had like 4 or 5 position players throw in that 3-day stretch. So you're hamstrung with that stuff, and you're playing every day. There's no oh, hey, maybe we'll cancel today because you don't have enough players. Like, we're playing that game. And then the PCL games you get into, and you're down by a bunch of runs and you want to, I just fill in an inning here, and you're pitching and you're facing ex-big leaguers and you're facing, top prospects, and you're just trying to not trying to miss barrels, and trying to throw strikes. And I took it as fun. I knew that I wanted to show that, pitching is pitching's hard, just like hitting's hard. But if you go out there and you have fun with it, and you don't have expectations, you go out there and it can happen. So I was happy to do it, and I love doing it.
Yeah, you did a good job. 2.45 earned run average and 7 appearances. Well done. Um, you didn't get drafted. So how did you reach a deal? Because I know you signed after with the Giants.
Yeah.
What was that like? On draft day, I know the late round draft picks, they don't get to sit there with their families and watch it on TV. I don't even know if it was sorry to make you feel old here, but I don't even know if it was on MLB Network during when you were maybe going to get drafted. So how did that work with signing as an undrafted free agent?
Yeah. So making me even older, there was a rule that actually my year in 2006 was the last year that they actually had this rule. It actually went away with when they stopped doing draft and follows. I actually signed before the draft. So I had already graduated from UC Davis. I was a fifth year senior. And so with fifth year seniors that had graduated, there was a rule that was in Major League Baseball that you could sign with any major league team 1 week prior to the draft. So my senior year, we have senior day. We're playing Stanford. We went and beat Stanford on senior day, which was pretty cool. And then I had, 4 or 5 meetings set up with scouts that were offering me contracts. And this gives you a little bit more, being a fifth year, senior sign, you don't have much bargaining power going to 50 round draft. You pretty much just sign for maybe a plane ticket to the Arizona League or the Florida Gulf League. So I actually got a chance to, have a little bit of a negotiation with each team that offered me a pro contract. So, I also got to pick where I went. So I did my homework on, maybe some of the other teams that I was talking to and how many catchers they had and where they're, what their top prospects look like. And at the time, the Giants, being a hometown team was always a perk. I felt a connection with the scout that drafted me, Keith Snyder. And he, I felt like, the Giants organization was primed and ready for me to, try to move up as quickly as I could. And I was with them for 9 years. And, got a chance to, play 4 years of AAA and bounce down to AA and catch some top prospects and help them along the way and be a part of, the minor leagues when we won 3 championships. Now, minor leaguers don't get, world championship rings, but I felt like I was ever a part of those 3 championships because everybody that came up through the Giants organization were roommates of mine and teammates of mine and friends of mine, and calling pitches for, Ryan Vogelsong. He opened up in 1 year and catching bullpens for him and throwing with him and talking baseball with him. And 2 years later, he's winning a World Series ring. And there's moments like that where you just feel like you're a part of something. And for me to be able to sign out of college and be with the Giants for that amount of time was something that was truly special.
So you mentioned that you did kind of your research before you picked a team. When Buster Posey was drafted, did you just go, "Oh man"? Was that something in your mind, or were you just still focused on trying to make it to the big leagues?
Yeah, I think every year there's a draft. You always joke around. You're with your your minor league team, and the draft is going on, and well, there's another 50 players to take my job. And so it just makes you work harder. It didn't really take me away from what I was doing when Buster got picked up. But I knew that once I got to AAA and he was the big league catcher, I knew that there was going to be something that was going to have to happen to him, which I'd never wanted to have happen to him. He's very humble, a great teammate. What was crazy about him is he never stopped trying to get better at the catching position. He was asking me questions, which was totally mind blowing to me. I mean, his first year in the big leagues, he's rookie of the year and wins a World Series. In the following spring training, he's asking me questions about the catching position. I mean, to have someone like that be the leader in the face of the franchise, there's no question why he is who he is. And this is baseball side. There's a reason why he's still catching and not moved to first base. His relationship with his pitchers, the way he calls games, his leadership behind the plate is just second to none. So, I never once blinked at the fact that I might not get to the big leagues just because of Buster Posey. I was just trying to make sure that I was ready for whatever opportunity I was ever given. And being a lifelong backup catcher, you never know when you're, one foul tip away from, being the everyday catcher. So I was always trying to prepare myself for that. And you really try to keep yourself kind of focused on just what you're doing. If you're worried about, who the Giants are drafting and, they drafted another 6 catchers this year, that you're going to be passed up really quick.
Yeah, so you played with the Brandons too, is that right? So what was kind of your perspective of them when they were at the minor league level?
So Brandon Crawford and I we were in each other's weddings.
Wow.
So we got really, really close. Our families are really close. And both being, Northern California kids who went to UC schools, there was an instant connection there, and we were roommates in Double A in Connecticut when he got called up, and we were roommates ever since. So he when he got called up really, pretty quickly, we were in Double A together in 2009 in Connecticut, and you could just see the instant skills. The skill set was off the charts, and then the following year, Crawford and I are both back in Double A in Richmond, opening up Richmond. That was the first year of the Flying Squirrels organization and affiliate with the Giants. And so then Brandon Belt got off to a really hot start in High A and got called up to Double A. And so now you got both of them. Both are super funny. They might be, during the games and when you're watching games on TV, they might be very stoic and very professional, but both those guys are super funny dudes. The clubhouse was always fun to be in. I remember going to, we'd be in Bowie, Maryland, and go to, Chuck E. Cheese to have lunch and be fooling around with the football game that's at Chuck E. Cheese or, whatever game we can play or, and I'll never forget, we had a rain delay in Nashville, Tennessee, and the dugouts are flooded and, the rain is pouring down and in Nashville at the old stadium, the clubhouse was out in right field corner of the stadium, and it was just too small for the whole team to be in there at once. So me and the Brandons and Ryan Rollinger and Brett Pill, we were all in the dugout, and I don't think I've ever laughed as hard in my life. And I think Emmanuel Burris was in the dugout too. So like you just have these moments where you just track back, and these are real dudes and they're funny, but they get the job done at elite level, at the big league level. And I think that they're definitely underappreciated, especially both Brandon's. Brandon Belt is has one of the best eyes I ever played with at the plate. He's also one of the best defensive first basemen for how underrated the first base play is. His ability to, stay on the bag when throws are going up the line or, and picking the ball and having a strong arm to be able to throw someone out if the left-handed picks over and being able to throw to second base. And then the gold gloves are real for Brandon Crawford. He's one of the most elite shortstops you can be. His footwork is immaculate. His arm strength is unreal. I don't think there's ever been anybody I've ever played with that on a relay throw is as good as he is. So those guys are just, they were talented and they try to be good at what they do every single day. There was never a day off.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Manny Burrises and the Ryan Rollingers of the world, because we forget about them. Manny Burris was a first-round pick. Ryan Rollinger, I believe he played like 3 sports in high school, was a 3-sport star. So those guys getting a shout out here. We talk so often about, minor league pay and the difficulty of making a living at the minor league level. What are some of the things you remember from that struggle?
Yeah, I just remember having to work harder in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get paid in the off season. So being able to, I was a substitute teacher. I gave baseball lessons. Later in my career, I actually started a travel ball, a couple teams. I was making more money in the off season doing lessons and substitute teaching than I was during the season. And so you just try to build up a savings account as much as you can. And not to mention, you're still trying to train 5 days a week and put yourself in a better position than the year before physically, so that when you go into spring training that you can show all the hard work that you've put into it. And then you get to spring training, you're not making there's no paycheck yet. You're playing, you're down in spring training for a month and a half, and you're getting, $7 a day to go eat, and they're giving you breakfast and lunch. So, but there's just, you got to be able to budget and be able to understand that it's kind of an investment. If you can invest, maybe some time on, and some of your own hard-earned money in the off season, and if you ever get a chance to make the big leagues, like that's the carrot at the end of the tunnel, that keeps you going. Is if I can, somehow get through this, the reward at the end of the tunnel, being a big leaguer, is going to be even sweeter. And being able to, obviously the paycheck is tough, but I wouldn't have changed it for any experience that I've ever had in my professional career, whether it was, getting a chance to play in the World Baseball Classic for Team Italy, or go over to Italy and play in a professional team, and, be able to travel around and be a part of, the Eastern League, and go to those, states on the East Coast. And then my last year in Double-A with the Brewers was in the Southern League. So being able to go and spend, time in the South, and then, be on plane flights in the PCL, and win, a league championship. I have 2 championship rings. One in the Northwest League with the Salem Kaiser Volcanoes, and then in 2009 with the San Jose Giants. So none of that ever, took away what I was trying to achieve. Yes, it wasn't enough, but you learn how to make do, and you learn how to grind.
Yeah, so you mentioned the Team Italy and the WBC in 2013. How did you get involved with the Italian baseball team, and what was that experience like? I'm sure it was probably one of the highlights of your career.
100%. Playing in international baseball, and especially playing for minor league baseball for a long period of time. I would say many players in minor league baseball, not to their own fault, are really playing for themselves and trying to make the big leagues. But when you play international baseball, you're all in for whatever the team needs. And you're no longer playing for the name on the back of your jersey. You're playing for the name on the front of your jersey. So that 2013 run that Team Italy went on was one of the most magical teams I've ever been a part of. And it was pretty special. But in 2009, I think was the World Baseball Classic, or maybe 2010. There was the World Baseball Classic before the 2013 when I was a part of it. And the bench coach for Team Italy was Tom Troublehorn, who for a long period of time was the short season manager in Salem Kaiser for the Giants. And he came back from the World Baseball Classic, and just, he came up to me and said, "Hey, you got to be Italian. You look Italian. Your last name's LaTorre. We got to get you on this team. We could have used you this past year." And so I went through the process of getting my dual citizenship and got a chance to play in the, European Championship for the Italian national team. We won a European Championship in 2012, and then, got the following spring training. Got a chance to go to big league camp and then play in the World Baseball Classic in Arizona. And then, we won 2 games. We beat Canada, we beat Mexico, and got a chance to move on to the next round with Team USA and go down to Miami Marlins Park and play against the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. And those experiences will never be forgotten. And those teammates, we still talk to this day about the experiences we have with those teams.
Yeah, never bet against the Italians. I think that's the takeaway. I mean, Rissotto, you could kind of – so I'm Italian too. So that's – and was Mike Piazza on that – was he a coach? So what was it like? What was it like kind of getting to know Mike Piazza?
Yeah, so he was he was the hitting coach for that team. He's now our national team manager.
Mm-hmm.
So he was actually with us in 2012 in our European Championship run. He was always around, and obviously me being a catcher, and he had little tips here and there, and just talking to him and getting able to pick his brain on it helped me not only playing international baseball for Team Italy, but it helped me in life and being able to coach now. So I thank him and everything that he did. I'm sure he wasn't doing it for his own ego or his own reasons, but he was out there to spread baseball and spread his knowledge of the game. And it was great to be a part of something that he's, now the manager of. And I'm excited to see where Italian baseball continues to build and continues to grow on all levels, whether it's at the youth level, the high school level, and then obviously into the professional level, and trying to get more Italians into this game.
Yeah, for sure. So are you still affiliated with the team at some capacity?
Yeah. We have, Chris Colabello is someone that, is a good friend of mine, and he's in constant contact with them, with all the, the Italian Baseball Federation. Our pitching coach with that 2013 team, Bill Holmberg, was someone that I really, really stayed in contact with. I really, really respected. He actually passed away from pancreatic cancer in the fall. So that was something that hit the Federation really hard. He was, he lived at the, the national team training facility and worked with youth Italians and really built that training facility there. So, hopefully, the college baseball season and something works out to where I can go back there and still continue to coach and be a part of something. And, I'm always trying to be as helpful to them as possible, because they were, incredible to me when I was playing with them.
Yeah, good stuff. Before we wrap things up, I have two kind of rapid fire questions. You can answer this however you want. Number one,
Okay.
Catching. I asked the catcher I had on last. His name was his name was Colin Thoreau. I knew his last name was Thoreau.
Yeah.
He's gonna hate me for that. But I asked him how many concussions he had, and he said none. So how many concussions have you had?
I've had zero. And I was never the catcher that, had a foul tip or anything and kind of took the time. I just wanted to, wear it and give the ball back to the pitcher. And I didn't need the umpire to call timeout. Like, that's just the way that I was. It'd be hurting in that instance, but I never wanted to take away from the flow of the game. At least I don't think I ever got a concussion. There's no more collisions at home plate anymore, but there was definitely some collisions at home plate and some foul tips that ring your bell. But I never had a concussion diagnosed.
Well, that's why you're coaching now. So there you go. Lastly, who's the best pitcher you ever faced or you ever caught? Let's start caught.
Sure. So I have a couple different categories for this. So
Okay.
Best stuff was Tim Lincecum. Tim Lincecum had the nastiest stuff. It broke really late. You never really knew where the ball was going until super late. That's why he could go out there and he could throw no hitters and strike out and be back-to-back Cy Young award winner. On the competitive side, Madison Bumgarner was. We would get in fights on the mound. He never wanted to give up a hit. He never wanted a hitter to, fake drag bunt, he was exactly what you see in games when he was pitching for the Giants. And now he's with the Diamondbacks, but he just, if he didn't like you, he was going to let you know about it. And he was the most competitive pitcher I ever caught. So I have those two categories. And then, of course I have, guys I enjoyed catching because they were my friends and they, had nasty stuff. You've got, Shane Lukes and Daryl Madej. And, there was guys that came up, catching Ty Block was always fun because you knew the game was going to be over in less than 2 hours because he worked fast. And, catching Hunter Strickland and having him throw 100 miles an hour was always fun. And then you've got older guys that are still trying to make a career, Vogelsong, coming back. It was a pleasure catching him because you could probably catch it blindfolded and he'd be hitting your glove. And so there's different types of pitchers, but, Lincecum's stuff was nasty. And Bumgarner's, just flat out competitive edge was never the same with any other pitcher I caught.
Yeah, Lincecum had that devastating split changeup thing, whatever that was. So I mentioned before I was kind of going into a different question. I guess I'll ask it now before we go. Who's the best pitcher you faced as a hitter?
Well, being a left-handed hitter, You've got guys that, the sidearm lefties always kind of gave me trouble. And so I think a couple guys that, kind of gave me trouble in my career were like Ryan Roland Smith, big Australian, kind of 3/4, feel like he was throwing the ball behind you. In AAA, we faced, James Paxton. I mean, he's so big and so long, like the ball comes out, you try to open up and it's just not right. But there was times where you were in AAA and you were facing the Mets and you were facing, Steven Matz, and then the next day was Syndergaard, and the next day was DeGrom, and then the next day was Daisuke Matsuzaka, and then you go up and you're facing, the Seattle Mariners, and you got James Paxton and Taijuan Walker and Erasmo Ramirez and Danny Hellitzen. So I think it was more along the lines of just the relentless pitching that you were always facing. But those big lefties that you don't see very often, those are the ones that gave me the most, the most competitiveness, because I didn't see very many lefties being a left-handed hitter. So those were the toughest guys.
Tyler, thanks for joining the show. I appreciate it. Best of luck to you guys in Sac State, and we'll be cheering you guys on.
Thank you, Steven. It was a blast.
You guys could follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RizzoCast. Subscribe wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, of course. And keep up for more content soon. And you guys could also go ahead and give Mr. Coach Tyler LaTorre a follow on Twitter. He is there at Tyler LaTorre. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.
Fingers up.